Serving their community is who they are because they love where they live. REMAX 3D Real Estate is proud to bring you Heart of Greenville, a video series dedicated to celebrating all the wonderfully great things about Greenville, Texas. On every episode, Dennisha Denney will share Greenville's story through the stories of people who call Greenville home. This is Heart of Greenville.
Hey y'all, I'm Dennisha Denney, your host of Heart of Greenville, and today we're sitting down at the landmark on Lee Street on the 3rd floor at The Landing. And my guest today is Mr. Brandon Adams. How are you today, Brandon?
Good.
Thank you so much for agreeing to sit down with me.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you guys letting me be in here to tell my story.
Absolutely. Okay, so I know you're from Greenville because we both grew up here. So let's kind of talk about what it was like to grow up in Greenville. Let's start there, and then I definitely want to talk about your art.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I grew up in Greenville. I'm 5 generations from this town.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how that happened or how we've stayed there this long, but yeah, 5 generations from this town. I started counting back, or my son's the 5th generation. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool to see like us continue to stay in this area.
Right. So what keeps you in this area?
Family. You know, as I was growing up, I thought immediately that I was going to be getting out of town.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, oh, it's a small town vibe. I got big dreams. I want to go do this, that, or the other. But, you know, as you start to spread out and go other places, you find out that other places are just other places, just like your place, except you don't have your family with you. Right. So I decided to go and camp close. And once we had kids, we started getting back closer. We got Dallas area and stuff like that. But once we had kids, we started moving back, towards home. And, there's nothing like being surrounded by your family. So
that's so true. I mean, I always say it takes a village to raise our kids and do all the things that you do. Mm-hmm. And I know your wife is so supportive of what you do. So a lot of people obviously from here know you just from growing up, but also know you for your art.
Yes.
And so how did that come about? How did you know that you had that talent? And what made you get started in that? Gosh,
what got me started in art? So when I was a kid and I was growing up, my grandmother used to hand me a pencil and paper to keep me quiet in church pew. So I got to where I just really loved to doodle and draw and stuff, like I'm sure 1,000 other kids did as well. But that was kind of the seed of where it started. I watched my brother go to some art classes as he was, growing up through high school and stuff, and I thought that was really cool. My uncle was super talented artist as well. And so I just saw these illustrations that were just kind of leaking out of my family, and I thought, man, that's a pretty cool trait that we have. I thought I was going to be a baseball player like every other numbskull kid thinks they're going to be, some superstar, but that's what I'd hoped for. And when I got into my senior year, I had an extra elective, and my mother was just begging me to take art class. And I was like, I wanted to take another workout thing or, something to work on my speed or my strength or something else. And she was
so
like... So
was baseball your goal in your mind? Like when I graduate, I'm going to pursue baseball and...
Absolutely. And I thought, I'm going to try to get to some school or figure out what I can do to play baseball, just so I can, keep this dream alive.
Right.
It's fun. You have a dream as a kid and, when you get to that point, you're just super excited about taking it to the next level. And again, like our team was great and I loved our guys. We just had such camaraderie between the guys and I just wanted that to live forever. And
you really did. Mm-hmm. So I was a couple of years behind you. And so I do remember your group and y'all did have a great camaraderie between you.
Yeah, no, I love that. There's still those guys we still talk today. And so 2 of my best friends are literally, we talk 4 or 5 times a day through chat or whatever. And so it's really kind of cool that starting out at 12 years old, I still have some of these oldest friends in my life are still there. And so that type of a bonding makes you want to continue to do that even past school. And then when it dies off, it hurts,
right.
But as a senior, I had an elective. My mother begged me to take art class. And I said, no, I want to do this. And she said, hey, look, if this baseball thing doesn't pan out, which I think you'll do great. And I was like, okay. Slap in the face.
Mom.
She said, you just do for me, just take an art class, right? So I said, okay. So I took the art class.
What kind of art was it? Was it just general art?
It was general art, okay. Right? And so I got in and we did everything from sculpting to charcoal to watercolors to whatever, and I just found myself, getting better and better and better by the moment. And And I thought, man, this is really kind of cool or whatever. So after I graduated, I had an opportunity to go play baseball overseas, and I thought this was going to be an opportunity for me.
Wow.
And, you know, it's funny when a dream comes to an end. You know what I mean? Like, you look around and you realize, like, what am I doing?
Right.
You know, you get to the point you say, I've been pushing this for so long to try to be this in my head, and when your mind grabs a hold that you're just not good enough, and I'm off in some other country trying to chase this dream so bad, it's just like, what are you doing?
So
you know?
Did you have a moment that you realized that? And what country were you in?
I was in Sweden, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And so I'd met some friends. They talked to somebody that had a baseball team on the other side. They showed them me. I went over and tried out for them and stuff. And I was literally about to get on a train to go on a tour through Germany and Russia and you know, some of that over there, like playing baseball. And I was like, you know, I thought, what a great experience this will be, but I just was sitting in a dorm by myself, and I was just like, you know, it seems like at that point, you're pushing too hard. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, the competition there, what was the end goal for this?
Right.
So I decided to come home.
So did you not build that camaraderie then with that team that you were traveling with?
Well, it's really hard when languages is a barrier.
Okay, so
right?
they're from other countries and cultures.
And so you're over there, and like everyone speaks a different language. Like you try to get some of that, but it's starting all over again, right? And it made me think, like, the peak was not there for me. Like, the ceiling was so short, and I just felt like I was hitting my head on the ceiling because I wasn't going to get anywhere out of that. And I thought maybe this was my last shot or whatever. So I decided to come home and go back to art school.
Did you have to finish a season? Or,
I just left.
Or did you just leave?
I just left. I just told him, I said, look, this is not for me. I'm going back home, and got on a plane and came back.
Wow.
And as soon as I got back, I came and interviewed at where I'd interviewed at an art school before. I went to the Art Institute of Dallas, and they said, what do you want to be? And just like me, I said, whatever makes the most money. As an artist, whatever makes the most money. And so they said, okay, you're going to go into 3D animation, which the crazy part about that was I'd never in my life even used a computer to this point. Sorry, wow. I'm old.
It wasn't the thing, to be fair. That wasn't the thing back then.
We did have beepers, though.
We did.
We did have beepers. No, but it was kind of cool because I jumped into that and quickly started, you know, finding my legs in that area. And in Photoshop was a program that I really loved. And Photoshop, if you know the programs, there's two parts to the programs once you go to the graphic design or art side of that. And one is Illustrator, which sounds like it would be more of an Illustrator, but it is more vector based and it's more flat colors. And there's one that's Photoshop, which is the things that they would take into the magazines and make your head on somebody else and make it look like you were in a place where you weren't, right?
Right.
I had a knack for doing that. Like, I could make it look seamless. I could do this. Before, now there's things like healing tools and things like that, which make a lot more people better at that part. But people used to come to me because I could make that look well. And that was like, okay, this is something that I need to start getting into more. So I went ahead and graduated with the 3D animation stuff, moved on to that. And once I graduated, I just went from agency to agency to agency and just kept moving along the line. And that's kind of where I jumped into that.
When you say you went from agency to agency, what does that mean? Like, you were working for them?
Yeah.
Doing like graphic design and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So basically what you do is you go to a design house or something in Dallas and or they're all over the country, whatever. But, you know, you go to these places and you pick someone who has a good mentor that's there, or you pick someone that has a great client that you want to work on or something like that. And so as you go in and you start working on those things, you go in and you learn from that person as long as you can. But as a creative, you usually spend 2 years at a place and get as much as you can, and then you level up to go to the next spot.
Right.
And every time you move, you level up, right? Well, with leveling up comes money and everything else, but also you're learning from different people, which is kind of cool as well. So I did that for, you know, several years, and then got to the point where it was, you know, met my opportunity out here.
Which is?
Now I'm vice president at Innovation First for brand and creative, and so started out there. This is my 10th year. I just passed 10 years in March.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a long time.
Man, I love the company out there. There's just really good people. They think about it differently than most others do. They challenge everything, and that is my personality. If someone says you can't do it, I say why.
Right.
That's just kind of how I'm built. So that's it's a great opportunity. I've built a team out there that is there was 3, 4, 5 of us when we first started out there. Now there's 27 of us out there, from 3D animators to, we do our own commercials, we do national broadcasts, we have a marketing team, we got packaging designers, and so we have all of these things. We're actually putting out a new series right now called for Roblox off one of our toys, and we're also doing a series for on YouTube based upon that as well. And so we've teamed up with the same group that did Angry Birds and Ice Age, and they saw some of the stuff we created, which is crazy to me. Like, they saw something in Greenville that we created that they thought, that is a great idea.
That is so cool.
And so now we've picked up with that, and there's going to be an 8-episodic series starting in August that's going to run through, and then the game comes out at the same time. So it's been pretty cool.
And that's all part of Innovation First?
Yeah, absolutely.
IFI? That comes out of your department?
Yes.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you do the recruiting of the talent too that comes in?
Absolutely.
I mean, I would think you would need to do that to make sure that they're at the same level.
Yeah, just looking for a certain type of a person too, right? And so when you go to start recruiting, we go to some of the top schools in the country, like Tony and Bob, who own that place. Like, they've given me great resources to go out and source people, right? We have an intern house. It's an 18-facility intern house out here that it looks like MTV Cribs in there, right? And so when these interns are coming from all over the country, that is a differentiator for us. When they see the facility that we're working in, that's a differentiator for us. When they see the things that I let them work on, I'm not going to send them to go get coffee or take out my trash or whatever. I want to grow them. I want them to be a different type of a person, and so better when they leave than when they came, and so we get 11 interns a quarter in my group. And some will stay for a year, and some will stay for 3 months, and so we pick the diamonds out as we go through. Once we go through, like, I'm picking them out in the interview process, and then once they go through, you find out if that was just a good interview or if this person's a diamond in the rough, and that's how we went from 3 to 27 pretty quickly,
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah.
So that's totally different than what you personally do in your art world.
Yes.
That you do in your shop in the middle of the night.
Yes, exactly.
So how did that all transpire?
I went to working at Innovation First. Like I said, I went to art school and I did, the painting and the drawing and stuff there as well. But when I was at the Innovation First, I just started there, and they have a charity, the Children's Advocacy Center, and they raise money through art or whatever on that one a lot as well. So the first year they did that, somebody donated a bunch of art. A famous gallery donated a bunch of art down there. I didn't know. I just knew that they were asking for art pieces that were going to be auctioned off, and I thought, man, I can do a piece and sell it or give it to these guys, and they can do whatever they want with it. It'll raise some money. Hopefully somebody will buy it. So I went in the garage and cut a whole bunch of shotgun shells in half and took the brass off and mounted them to a board and painted over the top of it a flag, and then put, Lincoln's head was kind of leaned down in a pose, and then, part of his head was kind of torn, but it was like one of the juxtapositions of one of the things you fight for the most is one of the things that causes your demise, and so I put that up there, and when I walked over and I delivered that, I saw all of the famous artists that were in this place, and I felt like, this big, and I was like, maybe I should just take this back, and they were like, no, everything helps. I appreciate it, whatever. And I was like, yeah, but these are real artists over here, and so went through the auction and started getting a lot of buzz, and there were some gallery people there, and, my art piece sold for the most out of all of them, and I was blown away by that. Well, the guy who was running the gallery thing came over and he says, hey, man, I love what you've done. Like, what else have you done? And I said, well, really, this is the first piece I've done. He was like, shut up. And I was like, no, really, this is. He goes, well, you need to do some more. I want to see more of what you've done by next year. I said, okay. So I went back again the next year and did another piece, and it as well sold for the most again. And I was like, man, how cool was this? Well, he comes over and says, what else have you done? I want to see your other pieces you've been working on. I said, you donated this much. What else? I said, this was it. And he literally grabbed me by the shirt and he said, look, if you don't do something with this, you're wasting it. And it was very eye-opening for me, at that point.
That's very profound.
Yeah,
for him to say that to you.
For someone to grab you,
yes,
and stop you, like not a side comment,
right.
not a hey man, you can do better, but to literally stop you in your tracks and say, focus here for a second,
right?
Just so you know that no one ever said anything to you. Here's a moment, take it or not,
Right.
And so from that moment on,
that changed your life.
Yeah, I've painted every day from that moment on. There is. I'd go out I had to go out in the garage and I'd pull the car out and I'd go into that point and I built my own easel and I just started painting, right? No one taught me how to do that other than I went to art school and I had some basic classes and I went to art in high school or whatever, but no one was telling me like, here's the paints that you should use and here's the mix that you should use and here's the type of brushes you should get for this and that. And I was just doing my own thing really, and it just started catching on, and people were actually kind of coming to me because of this, like, who's this guy with this unique, look that doesn't look like anybody else? And I think part of that was because I didn't have anyone telling me how to do it or whatever. So it was just what was ever flowing out of this melon, So.
I love it, and that's what I love about your art is it's all so different, but every piece has such a deep meaning.
Oh, for sure.
Like, I love to know when I see one of your pieces what the story is, because there's always a story with you behind the piece, and that makes it just as important as the actual piece.
Yeah.
And you're right, it is very unique. I see other artists, and it's like it's not like anyone else's I've ever seen.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So thank you for sharing that with us and for doing that and for donating. I know you donated again the other night for the Children's Advocacy Center, you know, another one of your paintings. And it's really cool to see that in the room and then to know that's local talent. You know, you grew up here and you're giving back, but also you're so involved internationally as well.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's really cool is you also have done a few of the murals downtown.
Yep.
So tell us about that.
So, man, at one time I was at a party. A buddy of mine was having a musician, was having a party on top of this building in downtown Dallas. He says, "Come down. I'm doing a show. Blah blah blah. I got you. I can get you in." I said, "Okay, cool." So Kelly's my wife, came in and we go up to the top. I'm listening to the show. I was like, "It's great." I mean, the atmosphere around it is like you're on top of the building watching this thing go off, and it was really cool. He comes over after the show and he goes, "Dude, I'm so glad you're here." He goes, "There's another guy here that I've been wanting to introduce you to for years." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "Don't move." And he walks across the party and grabs the hand of this guy, and this guy's a mountain of a man, and he's just dragging him through the crowd, and you just see like this silhouette coming through the crowd, parting the waves, and he walks over and he goes, "Tex, Brandon, Tex." And then he looked at me, he goes, "I'll leave you guys to it." And he walks off, and we both look at each other like, okay, well, I guess we're supposed to meet or whatever. And so Tex is a famous muralist. He's done graffiti forever. I mean, everyone knows him.
I have heard you talk about him too.
Genuine soul, man. I really love that guy. He's just like, he's taken me under his wing. He taught me a lot of stuff. And although our styles are completely different, he gave me the confidence to start in that, He said, "I'm doing a mural the next day." I walked over and was looking at it or whatever from a distance, and he hollered at me and told me to come over and just basically threw a can in my hand, and said, let's get to work, and I had no idea what I was doing, but he quickly gave me some tips and things like that. So
is that very different from painting your normal art and doing your normal art to doing it on a wall?
Yes.
With a spray can?
Yes.
Like, how do you get those fine details?
Well, it depends. I mean, there's a couple of different ways. There's different tips that are on the cans that you can buy. They're going to give a broad stroke to a thin stroke to a spatter to a whatever. And so, and every can shoots out in a cone, basically. And so you can lean that cone to an edge, so you can have a sharp edge one side, fade on the other. You can get it close to the wall, have a fine line. You get it far away from the wall. You have a mist. Like doing those types of things. You can take an edge board, cut a shape to it, and do a quick run, and you can just kind of build based upon that. But really, it's just learning tips and tricks the entire time, all the way around. But
do you sketch them out first?
Oh,
I've
absolutely.
seen some of the 7-Eleven ones that you've done. You've done some really cool ones, and I love the ones we have here in town.
Thanks.
Too.
Yeah. No, I build every one out in Photoshop. I just go concept it out, and mainly because one is I want to know the measurements that I'm doing, so I can build that out in my head. Secondly, is a lot of these times I have to get stuff pushed through, councils or things like that. So I have to show them what my vision is, ahead of time, or through corporations like, 7-Eleven or some of the other ones I've done through. Right. So, I always try to build that out in Photoshop and just so I can, present that.
That makes so much sense now. Because, I've stood there before and I'm like, this is massive. Like, how can you proportionalize it, when you're starting to do that art? So are your kids involved in art? So
my kids have always been involved in art just because of me kind of putting them into that. Both of them are extremely talented. I don't ever want to push them to the point where they feel forced to. Right. I learned that in baseball through seeing dads who are over the top. By the way, dads, let your kids play. Just let them have fun and don't push them too hard. Don't strain your relationships.
I love the side note.
Yeah, really it is. Like, I've seen that happen so many times to a lot of dads and sons over the time. The dad thinks he's pushed him to a better thing, and then the kid just feels horrible towards the dad for that. So right. I've taken that. Or they feel like they didn't get to do their own thing. Right. That too. Or it becomes a job, or it becomes like whatever they don't like about that, the kid translates that to their parent because their parents are making them do that. Right. And that to me is when it becomes sad. So I don't want to do that with my children. If they feel the urge, then I take them out and put a can in their hand or whatever. If they start drawing or anything like that, like I'm there to help them, or if they want to get into the graphic side of it and the programs, I'm teaching them the programs. But if they just say one word about it, I'm jumping to the fact of like, oh yeah, you can do this and this and this. And then and I try to watch their behavior to see if like they're in on it, or if they're, if I'm running past with my excitement, you know what I mean? So you're reading them, yes, to see, okay, how engaged are you? Yes. And that has to be. I know. I think maybe you and I've had a conversation, or maybe I even saw it on social, where you try not to. I know your son kind of felt like, okay, you're my dad, and you're this incredible artist. I'm not quite at that same level, and so how do you help him through some of that? Because I know you're starting to open up his creativity to what he's able to do. Yeah. So my oldest, both of my kids are very different in the style of art that they use. My youngest will jump into spray can and a hustle. My oldest doesn't do that as much, but can. But I remember the first time he told me that he was in art class and he didn't want to do it because when he walked in, people were, oh, this is so-and-so's son, he's going to be great. And then he felt like he couldn't live up to that. So he didn't want to. And I didn't want that part of it either out of him. I wanted him to feel like he could, basically do his own style. Right. And he didn't feel that way. So I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make a canvas. And I said, in the studio, I said, pick anything out, trash, anything you want, random piece of wood, whatever, and bring it back to me. So he goes and finds this piece of wood, and we just start painting over it together. And we take it and glue it to the canvas. And I said, find something else. And we just did this over and over and over again until we had like this collage of different colors and stuff. And then I started painting a face over the top of it. And it opened his eyes, and then I said, now pick something and write something and leave a message for someone and tell them something. And and when we got done, it was such a great piece that I'll never sell, because then my little one came out and started chipping in. Then my wife came out and started chipping in. And all four of us were just putting these pieces in there together. And like that bonding moment is something that you can never get for the rest of your life. That is like, and he goes, I get it. He understood that it didn't have to be like this great plan. Sometimes it's the journey and playing and seeing what comes out of your brain. A lot of it is opening the gift. People think that there is a architectural plan out there for everything, and it's not that way. Sometimes art is just being in the moment, not being embarrassed to show somebody, and putting your heart on your sleeve for a minute and just opening the gift to see what comes out of it. I think that's a big part of being an artist. And so from that moment on, he's been a little bit more open with, art in general. Man, I love that story so much. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I think it helps other artists. Because it is intimidating, at least on the first time you ever present your art to someone, because it is so subjective. I've learned to love all pieces of art, and not to judge it at all. And so
I love that you encourage people to do that, to step out and take that and open themselves up, because you don't know where that road's going to lead.
Yeah.
Had you not opened yourself up to donate that one piece, you wouldn't be sitting in the same spot you are today.
Well, think of what I said in my earlier story. I walked in, there's famous artists, I have my piece, I'm handing this over, I see what else is there, and I say, yo, like, these guys are real, I should take this back, I'm embarrassed, right? And there was a person there that said, no, let us have it, everything helps, right? There's a person there.
Right.
And I could have gone this way or the other. If that person had looked at me and said, I mean, sure, if you don't feel comfortable with it, then great.
Right.
But that person gave me a moment of encouragement.
Yes.
Versus, let me fall on my own sword and walk out of there with my painting, and then none of this stuff ever happens again.
Right.
So I think every one of us is kind of in charge of lifting people up to see what comes out of it. Like, if you see a style of art that you don't particularly care, like, what is your answer to that? Oh, that sucks? Or I don't like it? Or that's just not my style. But cool, I'm glad they did that, right?
Right.
You should always try to lift somebody up who is trying to do something. Like, they're trying to push themselves past everybody else. Like, lift them up,
In all areas of life.
Everything.
When someone is stepping out of their comfort zone, we should always lift them up
Right.
and encourage them and help them.
Right.
Amazing things happen when people do that.
Yeah, and people get to blossom as a person too, right? When people are able to express themselves in a way that makes them feel good, that goes to the other parts of their life, Like, they may, now go to work and be happier at work, or they may now be happier with the relationship because they have an outlet to get something out, or, that thing translates, and if you can do that for someone who's trying to express themselves. Secondarily, when someone is expressing themselves, you tell them what that means to you even more. You know what I mean? That's one of the things that I think is our job that we don't necessarily do enough of, is lifting up other people,
I agree. That is something we can do so much better at every day. And I think we get caught up in our own lives and we forget to do that sometimes, and but taking that half second, just like the person who said, no, go ahead and let's turn it in.
Yeah.
Just that one little phrase to you gave you exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
And that's what we all need to do every single day.
I see that moment right there as a shift in the train track. Someone is sitting there and they have their hand on the lever. They let me go through, or they pull the train track, and I go a completely different direction.
Isn't that crazy? Do you even know who that person is?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know if it was just someone who was volunteering, working the desk, but I mean that one person shifted your life completely. But here's the other side of that. We can't let the negative people hold us back.
Oh, of course. I get that from a lot of upcoming artists all the time. Are like, dude, like I want to put my stuff out there, but I can't handle when people are just tearing it to shreds. And I tell everyone, like, this is the hardest thing to do. When you love something so much, is to put it out there. It's easy to hold it where only you can see that, but that's not part of growth either. Part of it is listening to what they're saying and taking it and processing it for what it's worth. If a landslide of people don't like this and there's 3 people that are really affected, take that out of what's in there. If there's a landslide of people and they're giving you some positive advice out of that stuff they don't like, cool too. Take that out of there. But don't be defensive over it.
Right.
You have to let it breathe.
Right.
And you have to let people see it in the rest of the world.
Absolutely. Okay, Brandon, you and I could talk forever, but we're on Heart of Greenville, so I want to take a few minutes and us talk about what you love about Greenville. I know we kind of touched on it a little bit at the beginning with your family being here, but what are some things that you really do love about Greenville?
Man, what a interesting question, or elaborate question. Like I said, being here my whole life, I can go through and tell you the friends that I have here, to the family that I have here, to remembering the streets that I grew up on and things that happened on certain areas, or that my grandmother and I lived right down, my grandparents lived, and I lived right down the street from each other growing up, or driving through those areas, or the restaurants that I had the great hamburger at, and going to CB's with my grandpa, or going out to Super Bowl Speedway out there with him, and playing the local golf courses in town. I mean, there's different things that, when you get to a town, it just means so much to you when there's so many memories there. I have all of those memories here in this town, but because this is where my life has been. And I think that the more locations that you spend your life in to create memories, when they're all bundled up into one place, I mean, it's kind of hard to move away from that, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
That's why I'm still here too. I love our community so much, and it all comes down to the people for me as well, and just the community that we have. And you know, you have a whole list of friends. If you needed something, you could call them, and they would be there in an instant.
In a second.
Yes.
In a second.
Well, Brandon, I told you whenever we were going to end the show, I was going to ask you to pick a random number between 1 and 20, and that was going to be your final question.
Okay.
So what is your number?
I will say this for my family again. 4 is my number. I wore number 4. My kids wear number 4. When we work out together and we hit the rep 4, we holler 4. It's because it's us.
That's
and again,
right.
that's one of those things that it's about family. So number 4.
Absolutely. And number 4 is, what is your all-time favorite memory?
Wow. All-time favorite memory. I mean, it's got to be something family. I
was going to say, Brandon, you have to say family now because it's question number 4. But
yeah, it does have to be
your family's such a core of who you are.
Yeah.
And your wife, Kelly, just supports you so much. I love seeing her support for you and how much you support her. And y'all just have an incredible relationship that other families can model.
Thank you.
Because she lets you be you and working on your paint in the middle of the night and, you know, getting the boys to their practices and their things too.
Yeah. No, we actually fit really, really well together. Like I don't know that I could have ever been married to anybody else. Stayed married to anybody else. She's just a great human in general, and
she really is.
I'm doing my very best not to ever hurt her if possible. You know what I mean? Right. So like, you know, you have one person in your life that you need to make sure that you're doing everything for, because at the end of the day, we're going to be 80 and 90 years old, and it's just going to be us still holding hands out somewhere. So, yeah, I mean, you gotta treat that one person with a little more respect than everybody else. Right?
That's right. That's right. So what's a favorite memory with her?
You know, even a personal one, like with her, I can always say, we have a few key words and I'll always say something like forever. And forever for her, she'll say the same thing back. And we don't have to say anything else, but just those 2 words. But the first time that we said that to each other was pretty impactful, you know, because it wasn't much of anything. I mean, it was a word, but the meaning behind that, when we kind of told each other that, was like, man, like this truly is forever. Like, I don't know, super mushy, but that's kind of where I'm at.
That's super sweet. Yeah. So were y'all dating when you said forever? Or
no,
were you married when you said forever? Like,
no, I mean, I think, you know, as you go through the relationships with people, like Kelly and I have been together for 23 or 4 years. Like, we've been married 19 years now. So you think you love somebody a certain amount at a certain time. When you say, I'm going to marry this person, you're like, man, I couldn't love this person anymore. And it's like, psych, you know?
Right.
And like, then you have a kid, and then you have another kid, and you just gain more respect for this person all the way down the line. And like, I mean, I think even recently, like, I just kind of look over now and go like, man, what an idiot I've been my whole life, you know, to get to this point that you didn't recognize how much this person even means to you tomorrow versus the next day versus the next day. You're lucky if you get somebody that wants to put up with you in your life. You're lucky.
Right.
You know, and that will be there for you no matter how stupid you are.
Right.
You know, honestly.
That's
like
true.
That really, we should all reflect on that.
Right.
And if you find somebody that does that, you hang on to them and don't mess it up. You know.
Exactly. Well, I love that you guys have done that. You've raised a wonderful family.
Thank you.
You're leaving an incredible legacy.
Thank you.
And you're inspiring so many other people.
I hope so.
So thank you so much, Brandon, for sitting down with me. I have like a million more questions I want to ask, but we've come to the end of our time together. Okay. But thank you so much for agreeing to sit down with me. And thank you for sharing your heart. I've really enjoyed, I know we kind of got to the mushy part too, but I think that it's really important for people to get to see your heart. And that's part of why it's called Heart of Greenville. It's awesome. Not just about the community, but it's really finding out about the people who live and work here. And I'm so honored that you are still in Greenville and choose to stay here and raise your family and be a part of our community.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You're welcome, Brandon.
Thank you for watching Heart of Greenville. This video series, which is designed to celebrate Greenville, Texas, is spearheaded by REMAX 3D Real Estate.